Hello and welcome to this weekly update video for the week starting Monday the 17th, uploaded on Wednesday the 19th of July due to time constraints, which I'll mention a little bit later. But either way, this update will mainly concern this week commencing the 17th, and likely there may be one for next week, but we'll have to wait and see. So some of the info that we're going to discuss was already kind of mentioned previously, such as the fly-by-wire and beyond ATC. There is a little bit more info provided in the latest TFM blog post, so we'll go over that as well. So in terms of, let's start out here with the navigraph. So TFM at Sandy and Jason at the Expo spoke to navigraph, and they are close to gaining access to navigraph's database. They're in communication with the CEO with regard to storage options, and they will be included in the new navigraph hub as the old FMS data manager is phased out. This I think is a good thing. You know, we know the navigraph hub, which is the predominant way to install nav data nowadays in Microsoft, will eventually feature P3D add-ons as well, and pretty much any other add-ons that navigraph supports, and the old FMS data manager will be phased out, and that thing is not all that accessible. I mean, it's perfectly usable, but you have to do a bit of clicking around and object navigation. This new thing is so much easier than navigraph hub. It literally just finds all your add-ons and you just go through them and hit update, so it's really simple to use. Onto the fly-by-wire. So they confirmed what we already discussed, that they will be able to support the fly-by-wire A320, but I think quite excitingly, maybe something we didn't mention previously, also the fly-by-wire A380. I believe what TFM was told was essentially if you can support the A320neo, you should be able to support the A380 no problem. That's really exciting because it essentially means we should get two Airbuses, an A380 and an A320neo. I have had a few questions about some other aircraft that use fly-by-wire systems, including the Latin VFR products. They make an A321neo and an A319 and an A318, I think, and they use fly-by-wire systems. Logically, you might draw the connection and say that perhaps they will also be a potential aircraft for support. However, I think it's important, you know, we don't jump the gun. We've still got the Neo to do for the A320 and the A380, if indeed and when that comes out from fly-by-wire. So I wouldn't worry too much about other aircraft, but I'm sure, you know, if there is potential there, TFM would look into it in theory. And they're able to support this because of SimBridge, which is, you know, kind of as the name suggests, self-explanatory. You know, it connects the aircraft to the simulator, and it's kind of part of fly-by-wire's methodology in running some parts of the aircraft externally. So that is essentially the method that TFM can use, and they're currently, as I said I think in a previous weekly update, waiting on the EFB. The EFB is quite important because not only do you set your SimBrief ID there, but you also set the aircraft's weights in there. You can import your plan from there, and you know, you can do quite a lot of the aircraft's performance data within that EFB. So it's not really possible, you know, to just fly this thing without the EFB. So we are kind of waiting on fly-by-wire to provide that. But given the discussions at Expo, you know, hopefully it won't be too long. I know it's been something that has been in the pipeline for quite a while, that people like Josh had already mentioned to fly-by-wire. So hopefully the discussions at Expo accelerate that process and they get a move on with that. Some more discussions about Beyond ATC. I already mentioned that, and there have been some more videos. So not only is there now a video on the Beyond ATC guys channel with a demo flight, there's also a couple other YouTubers who have been doing content creation for this. One notable one was Overkill Simulations. He did an interview with the developer over an hour, putting community questions to the developer, so you can search for that. I also put it in the community group on the WhatsApp. And I believe the Overkill Simulations channel also featured a full flight, video that the guy had done as well. So if you want to see more content, then that's there. There is a Discord you can join. There is going to be a beta, and there will be VI people on that beta. I know of several who are going to be on it. I have also requested, hey, I'm here if you need help from the guy. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter who, as long as there's people on there who are giving advice. This thing theoretically should not need too much work. The majority of it is voice recognition. We just need to make sure that the interface is accessible, but it's a really simple interface by the sound of it, very clean, not cluttered, and not full of unnecessary buttons and things. The developer in a chat that I had with him seemed open to adding things for blind pilots. So we mentioned kind of the need to prioritize ILS approaches over visual approaches, especially in the US, because there was talk that the software had algorithms to prioritize visual approaches, which is kind of the norm in the US, but obviously not useful for us blind pilots. And also the whole thing about skipping to the runways, whether we could add some phraseology in there to request a reposition, and that reposition then take place. And there was talk about kind of how the AI would work with this thing. So it doesn't directly control the AI, but there is a layer over the top of the simulator that allows the program to determine what the AI is going to do, even if it can't directly control it. So theoretically, it could let us know when the runway is clear if someone was using a form of AI traffic, such as FSLTL. So that's all positive, and the developer does seem really open to working with us. The TFM presentation was said to have gone very well, with key attendees, navigraph staff, active duty and retired pilots in attendance, of course, as well. This will be a presentation that you can access via your account if you had a ticket, and it will eventually get put up on the YouTube as well, so we'll all be able to watch it regardless of whether you ended up purchasing it or not, but who knows quite when that will be. Now on to something pretty important, the TFM anniversary flight. So on the 2nd of September, which is the first Saturday of September, there will be a TFM anniversary flight. There's usually one each year to celebrate TFM. And this one will be from Houston, that's Kilo India Alpha Hotel, George Bush, to Toronto Pearson. It will be open for any blind pilots, or indeed anyone who wants to take part to celebrate TFM. It will be on VATSIM. You don't have to fly it on VATSIM, of course, but if you kind of want to join the group, then you can fly on VATSIM. Vision will most definitely be taking part in it, although I should emphasize that this is not a Vision event. This is TFM's event with kind of Andy and Jason, the ultimate organizers. It's nothing really to do with BVI Virtual per se, but of course we'll take part. And Andy did ask for help with ATC, so I've engaged a couple of people, and some members of our community are kindly getting in touch with those that they know to see if we can get ATC. I'm going to send off a few messages as well, and as I say, some other members of our community are doing the same to their contacts, so we should at least hopefully get departure and arrival ATC, and hopefully some en route stations as well. It promises to be a fun event, and these things are always quite busy, so bring your A game. Please no loading up on the runway instead of at a gate. Yes, please load up at a gate. It's good practice on VATSIM. But other than that, if you're even an intermediate on VATSIM, then that's totally fine. The controls are usually patient, don't be too worried, but there are some rather basic rules of etiquette that kind of have to be followed. As long as you know how to fly a route, fly a heading and altitude speed, maybe getting a bit of practice flying beforehand, practice the route or something, then you should be good. And do reach out if you need any help with that kind of stuff. Now, TFM is going to have some downtime from the 2nd of August in terms of its development cycle. Andy is going in for surgery. It's not going to be any kind of life-threatening or serious surgery, but it is a surgery nonetheless. And so, he said that he's going to be kind of out of action for a little bit whilst he recovers from the surgery. So, best of luck for that. Hopefully it goes well. And he said that he'll keep us updated. And it kind of in combination with that, although this is happening a little bit earlier due to kind of TFM's need to eventually push out a preview build and not keep just developing in a cycle round and round and adding more and more but never actually releasing anything. There is going to be what's called a feature freeze as of the 24th of July. So they've asked that any bug reports and requests kind of be filed before then. Yeah, so there's not going to be anything new added past the 24th of July, whilst what is already there is consolidated and eventually released in terms of a preview build, although that hasn't been confirmed in terms of a release date yet. So obviously with Andy taking some time out as of the 2nd of August for a little while, and Jason's schedule kind of just working on it as and when he's able, I wouldn't expect it to be kind of in the next few weeks, but the feature freeze does mean that we are kind of nearing an actual release of what's already been spoken about and consolidated. So in terms of what has been implemented, there was some discussion about some recent advancements in July. The filtering of gates. So obviously right now when you go to the gates dialog, you have a big long list of all the gates. So what they're saying is there's going to be ways to filter your gates, I would imagine by size and maybe by type, etc. Maybe even by terminal, so there's going to be ways to filter it basically. So if you decide, okay, I'm in a 747, I need a large gate and I want it to be, obviously a passenger gate, not a military or a GA, then you can go and filter, which will be nice. There's also going to be a checkbox in the destination runways dialog to save your choice, so in case of a crash it'll be there when you come back. And also some discussion about the right bracket November shortcut, which will start giving information about runways and their location in relation to you as an aircraft, and that will be even for runways that are not ILS. So there was some further discussion, about how we could best do this for our navs, and nothing's been confirmed yet, but discussion about adding some kind of information about your lateral position to the runway and your distance to the threshold and all this kind of stuff that really might help on an RNAV to ensure that the plane is actually taking you to the threshold and is not going to kind of bounce off the center line and take you onto the side of the runway, or worse, into the grass or a hill or something ridiculous. Right, well, that's all the TFM stuff. I do have a few other notes to point out. So as you may have seen on the channel, I did redo my 737 tutorials earlier this week. So do go and take a look at those if you are a beginner and you want some kind of guidance. You can follow along what I'm doing, of course. They are updated for Microsoft Flight Simulator and kind of just stuff that we've learned over the past year or so. I don't know when exactly I last did my PMDG 737 tutorials. They would have been in P3D, probably version 4, and they're still up there, so you can use those as well. But these ones might contain a bit of updated information, and of course also the SimBrief layout has been updated since then, and I did show how to extract key information from SimBrief. And I think I should emphasize, along with these tutorials, please try, as a new member of the community, always feel free to ask for help, but try and do things for yourself. It gets a bit tiresome when you got people asking for simple things that they could Google, whether it be links, whether it be websites, whether it be how to do a basic thing that you could really just find if you Googled or found a tutorial and follow along with that tutorial. If it's a more complex question, that's fine. And there's also nothing wrong with asking, hey, I'm looking at doing a flight, I'm wonder if anyone's around, if they could jump on and chat with me about it. But when you start asking for people to help you install everything and install simulators, it's getting a bit ridiculous at that point. These things are not really that difficult, and ultimately, if you're not able to install things yourself, then it's probably not for you. So, try and do things for yourself. And if you really get stuck, we're always willing to help. But, there's got to be some kind of push from your side as well as pull from ours in terms of giving you the stuff. I mean, there's extensive resources up on bvipilots.net. There's these tutorials that I just made. And, of course, there's a lot outside of our community as well. A lot of the cited YouTubers are very good at describing things within their aircraft when they're doing these tutorials. And PMDG, don't forget, comes with an extensive manual and several tutorial flights as well. So you know, a lot of the basic questions you're going to have. I know it's kind of cliche to say read the manual, and you're probably thinking, oh, I don't want to read all these pages and pages. Well, you know, sorry, sometimes that's what it comes down to, because you're only going to gain the knowledge by taking that in-depth dive. You know, you can't just twiddle a few buttons and off you go. This is not Eurofly or something like that. So you know, and even with Eurofly, there is a manual, and I'm sure if people read it, a lot of basic questions that they have would be answered, and they wouldn't be constantly asking on mailing lists. But there you go. People don't always like to read the manual, but please do, because they are there for a reason. So I hope this was informative, and I shall see you next week for another weekly update. All being well, if there's enough to cover.